they'll figure out a way to reach out to you as the listing agent and start engaging with you on when you can see it. Can you get in early? When can you see it? And that's the kind of thing you want to have happen to be able to work with non-represented buyers to be able to hog the deal and make more money for you. And it will also ultimately net your seller more money as well. So let's talk a little bit about going from good to great on the listing results, part 2. So coming soon, this whole process starts with building buzz and momentum. And so you want to build in time before the listing goes active. So what does that mean? So in Minnesota, not all states, and maybe not in all areas around the world, but if that is an availability, you want to do a couple things. One, work with your seller and add language to your listing agreement that says that you're able to market the property before it goes live on the portal or the MLS or whatever it is that you're working on. Now, here in Minnesota, we have a specific new change that happened years ago where we now have to be able to put it on the MLS after the contract is signed within a certain amount of time period. But let's be very clear. There's a difference between when it was signed and when the actual contract date starts. So what do I do? Well, what I do is I sign it in advance, but I post date, I guess, the actual start date. So that's going to be the actual coming soon date. So an example is today is April 20th, 2022. I would say do some paperwork today, which I'm going to do for a new listing. But we're not actually going to do it coming soon until the 25th. And then 10 days later, it's actually going to go live on the MLS. So the example is that I would do the paperwork today, but I write the actual agreement that the contract is starting on the 25th. And that is the day that it needs to go into the MLS or within 2 business days of that date. Now, why am I telling you all this? Because if there's some people who you want to have an agreement with and people want to be able to see the property, technically you cannot show the property. But after you have everything scheduled with people that want to go look at it, neighbors that want to come over, and an open house that you're going to do, you can then change when it goes active at any time. And that way you have a head start amongst all the other realtors who are going to be booking showings with their clients to be able to hopefully pick up some non-represented buyers, maybe work with a neighbor who wanted to put in an offer, or some of your clients that you knew would be perfect for that type of property. So it just gives you a little bit of a leg up, and it also creates an amazing amount of buzz. The next thing I want to say is that you don't want to do it more than 10 days prior to. And the reason is because people, it'll kind of go a little stale. People like, oh yeah, it's not going to be coming soon for 21 days. And you can have up to 21 days. But what we found is that if you do only 10 days prior and start all this buzz creation, you'll do a lot better because you'll keep people's attention. Now, the other thing you want to do is not only attracting buyers without agents, but you also want to simply add a couple outdoor pictures. All right, if you can find stuff from the fall or some previous listing, which I've done, where you can get authorization from the prior listing agent and say, please, pretty please, my client's going to be blah, blah, blah. You know, I know you had some great photos when you listed it 4 years ago. Not a lot has changed, although it's much greener. Is there any way I would be able to use some of your photos? And most of the time, like 80% of the time, they'll be like, yeah, sure, no problem. But if you have good photos and it's not like dead of winter and it looks terrible where the grass isn't green and the snow is out, whatever you got to do, maybe do some cropping, maybe do a little editing. Some people have actually spent money, I do sometimes, on virtual staging, even on the outside, to remove the snow and add some green grass, add some landscaping, etc. Remember, you're trying to win the online beauty contest to get interest and attract them to the property. Kind of the same reason that these people use filters on Instagram, right? They want to attract people and look more beautiful. All right. Well, with that said, then we also wanted to get a couple indoor teaser photos. Now, what is the most important things about selling real estate? And the answer is the number one thing that you can do to update to sell your home, of course, is kitchens and bathrooms. So if it's not too much trouble, even before it's going to go live and before the professional photos are going to be done, we want them to get them to clean out that kitchen and make it all nice and take some teaser photos with your iPhone or your smartphone. They take really good pictures, make sure all the lights are on, but just, this is a whole nother masterclass in and of itself. So I just want you to know that good photos to just get it started is better than nothing. But be careful with your lighting, your angles, the junk that's there. Make sure it's super well staged and cleaned up and decluttered. Same thing with the bathroom, fresh towels, put the seat down. I mean, just stuff that's obvious to me, but unfortunately, a lot of agents don't know better. And then maybe a shot of the tub, because you can't get it all in if it's a smaller bathroom, with what's going on with the wonderful tile floor and the vanity. So just do a couple of those. Maybe you'll do something in a sunroom, or you might do, a couple others. Now watch, here's what's going to happen. As time goes on and they get ready for it to go live, we're going to update those photos and descriptions on the MLS or in your portal about every 2 to 3 days. And why is that important? Because with Zillow, what they do is they'll send out, with anyone who saved that listing, they'll send out an actual blast. Oh, look, new photos. Oh, look, new description. And anytime you change anything on that listing, they get an email to let them know something is happening. Now think about it. If that extra photo here and change your little description there happens every 2 to 3 days, they're going to get more and more kind of frothing at the mouth going, oh, I can't wait to go see this. And it keeps them engaged and excited. Like, honey, look, they put up new pictures. Those are the things that you want to have happen, because then what people are going to do is hopefully they'll figure out a way, and a lot of savvy people will now, they'll figure out a way to reach out to you as the listing agent and start engaging with you on when you can see it. Can you get in early? When can you see it? And that's the kind of thing you want to have happen to be able to work with non-represented buyers, to be able to hog the deal and make more money for you. And it will also ultimately net your seller more money as well. All right, so here's an example of the one that I did for my buddy's lake home. And to just give you an idea, when you do this, you're lucky to get 50 to 60 saves, all right, on a really good listing. And you're lucky to get about, say, 400 or 500, maybe 1,000 views. Well, because of this method of what I'm doing with coming soon and adding photos and adding descriptions, and by the way, I wasn't doing it 2 or 3 times or every 2 to 3 days. I was doing it every day, because I was literally working this as I was going. And even after it comes live, when you make changes, those people will be then emailed and let them know. So even after it goes live, when you make changes, add photos, etc., they'll still get engaged with an email from, say, Zillow on what's going on. So in this case, with 255 saves and over 5,000 views, this was off the chart exciting, and the attraction and the engagement was there in a big, big way. So coming soon, very important part of how you get buzz going, because the more you get buzz, the greater opportunity that multiple offers will come in. And by the way, the goal, just so you guys know timing, here's the perfect scenario. Listed on Wednesday, do a little, what we would call a pre-open house.
Hey, Marty?
Go ahead, question, Chris?
Hey, sorry, yeah, I do have a question.
Okay, good, because I was all of a sudden
MLS,
freaked out because this was this voice that came from nowhere. Go ahead.
So in your MLS, which I'm going to soon be a member of, when we do a coming soon and you don't make the listing active, it still pushes out to Zillow?
So yes, that is true. It does. So basically in the past, Zillow was great because you could coming soon, before there was a coming soon ruling, what they call fair, whatever, cooperation. I don't remember what it was. Basically, it was a bunch of people whining because they didn't want people coming soon, pre-marketing it before their clients had an opportunity to see the property, and a lot of stuff was getting sold before it hit the market. Okay, so that's the reason that it changed. So in our MLS here, which is North Star MLS, in the we'll call it the central region of the Twin Cities, and I guess all of Minnesota now is going to be part of that. that when you make it coming soon, Zillow grabs it immediately because they're taking anything from the MLS, even if it's coming soon, and they'll represent it as coming soon on the Zillow page as well. So yes, the answer is when you're coming soon, because you put it in as coming soon, it's on the MLS, but it's not active, Zillow will still grab it and start marketing for you.
Okay. So whatever status it shows in the MLS, Zillow is able to actually pull it before it's technically active.
That's right. And oftentimes, as you've probably seen, is that after it goes pending, they're usually 2-3 days late or even more. They're getting better now because of the integration, but there was a time when it would still show active on Zillow, but yet it's been pending on the MLS for over a week, and people would be like, "Oh, I want to see the property." It's like, we already took an offer. So in this case, yeah, you want to use that time period, and there's some other even more detailed strategies that I don't have time to go into, but hopefully that gives you some stuff to start with. We'll maybe do an advance coming soon at some point in a non-recorded version. How's that? Does that help, Chris?
Yes, thank you.
All right, you got it. All right, moving on. So let's talk about look for appraisal gap coverage in your written offer. So we're going to talk now about appraisal and what happens when now in the middle, because in the middle was last week when you did all this stuff to get these offers way above the asking price, way above. Now we could have some problems, what we call appraisal gap coverage. Appraisal gap coverage is a situation when they're offering so much higher that it may not appraise for that. And we want to make sure that the buyer is going to be willing to pay the differential so that the seller can still net the number they want to. Because in the old school world, before this became such a thing 3 years ago, what would happen is that if it didn't meet appraisal per FHA guidelines, you would have to, as the seller, lower the price to make it match what the appraisal was, and that sucked for everyone, mostly for the seller. Buyer's like, yeah, I don't care, I got a better deal, and it's the appraiser's fault, and he's the bad guy now. Well, here, what we want to do is make sure if that happens, that they or you are going to understand how you're going to split or deal with that appraisal shortage. All right. So sometimes what will happen, and we always want to see this, by the way, as a separate addendum. We don't want to have this in the other section of the PA. Why? Because the appraiser is going to see this. The appraiser typically gets a copy of the purchase agreement, but they don't necessarily have to have a copy of all addendums. So this addendum to the purchase agreement that would talk about appraisal gap coverage, wording might be buyer will cover appraisal shortage up to $20,000, from the offer price, or it might be the seller and buyer agree to split the appraisal difference up to $10,000. So different things like that. And I'm going to give you in a follow-up through those that are part of Wealth Building Wednesday and the WhatsApp group, and for those that are members of the Legends International team, you'll be able to get some more wording and some more details. I just wanted to give the example here in the training and then give you more words to look for. And if you're working with a buyer, what words and things you could share with or what you could put in your offer to help. All right, so now the next thing I want to share with you too that's important is, now that you have this great offer, you want to make sure that you're doing everything you can, that you don't want the buyer to have to come up with cash out of their pocket. You don't definitely want your seller to have to come up with any of the money to help with the differential. So one of the techniques that we want to do is we want to do your change form with the MLS or your portal, whatever, if that's required in your area. And I always try and make this global because some might have more of a kind of Wild West method that you don't have to do all this. But I want to use kind of the most strict ones that we have, for instance, in Minnesota. And that is that you want to change the list price to match your highest and best offer before it goes pending. So during this time period, with most people in the old days, when stuff was on the market for weeks or months and no one made offers, then they would lower the price. Well, you have to do a change form and have the seller sign it. Well, now we're going to have the seller sign it that it's going to be raised, which is totally bizarre, but it's really, really strategic in the way that it helps everyone involved in the transaction. So what we're going to do is we're going to do that change form. We're going to have them sign that right after the offer is accepted, or before the offer is accepted. But before we reflect it on the MLS, for sure, we want to make sure that we change that price during the inspection period, if there is one, which there's rarely not nowadays, but definitely before you change it to pending, because the appraiser is going to see that and they're going to do their research on the MLS, just like you could do comps. And they're going to see that there was a little bit of a game being played there, but at least that way they can say, well, look, this was the actual list price, the new list price. So now I'm not trying to come up with a $60,000 or $80,000 difference or $40,000 difference on the actual list price and the actual offer price. It looks closer now where it makes more sense. And I hope that makes more sense to you guys too. Then the next thing is you want to email the appraiser. I call it the appraisal love letter, which basically gives them the opportunity to do their job easier and they don't have to do as much work. See, the goal is, because just like everyone, we're all pretty much lazy by nature. We want to make as much as money as possible and work as little as possible. And so if we can give the appraiser all kinds of good information to continue to add to the documentation that they would need to make that appraisal number match, it's just going to make everyone's life easier. So before they go out to inspect the home, and you'll know because as the listing agent, they're going to book a showing or a showtime request. So you're going to know they're coming in next Monday, and today is Wednesday. So you want to, between now and Monday, put this email together, this love letter of all this information, and add all the supplements that you can to give them all the documentation possible to help them do their job and get the number that everyone wants. All right, so here's a sample of what that might look like. So this was to Charlene, and this is a real deal property from last year at Thomas Avenue. And I, so this might be in the subject line, appraisal information to consider for 986 Thomas Avenue, St. Paul. Then I might repeat that again in the body. And then here's some of the words. Meeting the appraisal should be fairly straightforward on this house, but I always like to supply extra information that you might find helpful. Now, the reason we word it that way is we don't want to say you're an idiot and you're probably not going to know what to do. So let me give you everything so you can do your job. So that's why I say it might be, you might find it helpful, because you don't want to be like, I'm the expert and you're an idiot. Although there's a lot of really ridiculous appraisers who don't know what they're doing. They're better nowadays, but there was a time when there wasn't enough appraisers around. So they were hiring them and they just didn't do a great job. So please see the attached list of updates. Now, that's where I would actually do a supplement list that would break down by year what big things were done with the house. The HVAC was upgraded in 2011 and the roof was done 2 years ago and blah, 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 flooring was done and so kitchen was updated, just before, listing. And I would give them all the details you can. Not only does the appraiser want to see that, but in your supplemental section of the MLS for potential buyers, you want the agents to be able to have access to that, to be able to share with their buyers as well, because it just, documentation beats conversation. You might forget about it, but this is something that if you're doing an open house, you'd want to have this printed out, including your listing. And you know what? Well, voila, a whole nother segment we got to train on how to do effective open houses. But anyway, so these what I would call detailed information sheets should all be there for you to be able to share not only with the appraisers, but with everyone interested in the property. All right, so then I put out, and I actually document now. Look, it had 17 showings in the first 24 hours. And just everything that you want to put on there. Many more would have happened, never got to see the property, which is true, because oftentimes once we do change that price, it separates the curious from the serious. So like in the case of of some properties, I'll change it twice. I'll change it once when it's going crazy, and I'll change it one more time before the property goes pending. Then the next one is we received 3 offers, in some cases it might be 13. All right. In my world, I don't really want to see more than 6 or 7 offers. I don't want to see 11 or 15. And the way I do that, again, is by changing the price and engaging with these buyer's agents. I separate the curious from the serious. So I'm only having to review and share with my seller the strongest offers and the ones that they're never going to get to the top. They're not even close. Take people out of their mercy and don't have them wasting time writing offers that there's no way it's going to ever get into the top 4 or the top 2 or be accepted, right? So I talk about that in the first 24 hours. To get 3 offers is pretty solid. I was going to say, and I forgot. So let me go back to oh my gosh. I mentioned about when to go active and when to close it down. In the perfect case scenario, you start on a Wednesday. This is where I was going. I never finished this thought. And you end on a Sunday night. So on Wednesday, you go live sometime in the afternoon, and hopefully you'll have a 2-hour window before everyone else. You make it go live, but you've already pre-scheduled everyone that's going to come in that's not represented, that has already contacted you, wants to see the property, the neighbor wants to put an offer, etc. That might be from like, say, 2 to 6, all right? Or it might be from 4 to 6. Then from 6 o'clock on Wednesday night, all day Thursday, all day Friday, let everyone go mad and just show it like crazy and get your sellers out of town. Have them go take a mini vacation. Go stay with the relatives, because the house is going to be nonstop people going in and out of there. So there's no reason to live there during that time period. Then on Saturday or Sunday, typically Saturday's better, noon to 2 or 1 to 3. Again, you pick whatever time. You'll do your own open house as the listing agent, or maybe someone on your team. And then hopefully that will be another opportunity to attract some non-represented buyers. And if nothing else, be able to meet the nosy neighbors and find out what they're up to and maybe get their listings down the road as you follow up and connect with them. There might be some buyers who are just kind of interviewing, wonderful realtors that they're not ready to buy now, but maybe in the future, you want to be that wonderful realtor that they can connect with and follow up with to be of service to. And then say Sunday, it goes crazy some more. And then by like, say, 5 o'clock, we're going to call for highest and best. And then by 7 o'clock, we're going to do the final 4. And by Sunday night or sometime on Monday afternoon, we're going to have it all done and done, right? But at least then the people that live there can come back, after 7 o'clock at night or whatever. You got to figure that out with your seller, and have them live in their house again. And then the only other people that would need to come in is if there's going to be an inspection down the road in a few days, or if there's going to, of course, be the appraiser that needs to get in, is the only ones that are going to have to disturb them in the future between now and when they move out and we do the closing. All right. So there you go. That was that add bonus that I wanted to share with you on the perfect timing, which is started on a Wednesday, shut it down on Saturday. And so you have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So the home should only be on the market for 5 days and sold. If it's longer than that, then, the marketing maybe wasn't there. The pricing wasn't what it should be. And by the way, you should have 17 showings in your first 24 hours, because for every, we found for every 7 to 10 showings, there's going to be an offer there, a good, strong offer. And in this case, that kind of checks. All right. So then I recap with them, what the offer was that we accepted, how much down, the closing date. I give them the links to the comps, because I'm hoping you've all done this and have learned how to do comps and, kind of show that. This is an old link. The MLS doesn't look that way anymore. It has different one home or whatever. And then I talk about, other properties that are pending. I talk about, all the specific things that they need to know that will just allow them to go, what? Wow, this is amazing. They could have even got a lot more than what they did. So yeah, we're good with that. And once again, if I wouldn't have done this, in my mind, it may not have met appraisal. But by giving them this quality information, it was easier for them to say, you know what, sure, we'll let that go and we'll let it meet the asking price of $260, even though technically it might have only been worth like $245. Okay. So those are just kind of some quick examples of the love letter, informational letter to the appraiser before they show it, so they have it all in their file folder and they're doing their research before they head out. And then they qualify and quantify that when they do go out that day, and everything is groovy great. All right.